She was one of the most powerful CEOs in New York, but behind all her wealth and success, she carried a heartbreaking secret. Her little daughter had never spoken a single word. Doctors failed, therapists failed, and hope was slipping away, until one ordinary day at the playground, a single father and his son walked into their lives. And what happened next left everyone frozen in shock. The story begins with a woman named Olivia Carter, one of the most powerful CEOs in New York City. On the outside, she was everything people dreamed of: wealthy, respected, and confident. Her name was printed on magazine covers. Her speeches were quoted in business journals, and her presence commanded entire boardrooms. But behind that image of success and glamour, Olivia carried a heartbreaking secret that very few knew about. Her 6-year-old daughter, Emma, had not spoken a single word since the day she was born. It wasn't that Emma was unable to speak physically. Doctors had run every test, every scan, and each report came back the same. Her vocal cords worked, her brain functioned normally, and there was no medical explanation. The silence was emotional, locked deep within her tiny heart. Olivia spent countless nights wondering if she had done something wrong as a mother, if her demanding career had stolen away the comfort her daughter needed. But no answer ever came. Therapists had been hired, some of the most expensive and well-known in the country. Specialists from around the world had given their opinions. Emma was placed in schools with speech programs, surrounded by patient teachers, but still no words. No good morning, no I love you, not even the simplest mom. Olivia had everything money could buy: penthouse apartments, luxury cars, vacations in the south of France. But none of it mattered. What she truly longed for was something money could never purchase: the sound of her daughter's voice. That Saturday morning, the sky was bright, but carried the coolness of early spring. Olivia, usually too busy even on weekends, decided to take Emma to a small neighborhood playground on the edge of the city. It wasn't their usual polished, private park attached to her wealthy circle of friends. This playground was different, humble, simple, filled with ordinary families who had no idea who she was. Olivia preferred it that way. She usually avoided crowded spaces, not because she disliked people, but because of the whispers that always followed. That's the CEO with the mute daughter. The pitying looks cut deeper than any insult ever could. But that morning, something tugged at her heart, urging her to try again. Maybe, just maybe, today will be different. Emma, in her little yellow dress and pink sneakers, sat silently on the swing. She didn't laugh or call out like the other children. Instead, she kept her eyes fixed on the ground, gently kicking at the dirt. The sound of children's giggles filled the air, kids running across the monkey bars, sliding down bright red slides, their parents calling out reminders to be careful. Yet Emma remained in her own quiet world, as if there was an invisible glass wall separating her from everyone else. Olivia sat on the bench a few feet away, her hands folded tightly in her lap, watching her daughter with an ache so heavy it almost broke her. She wished, just once, that Emma would look up at her, run into her arms, and say that one magical word every mother longs to hear: Mom. But the silence remained, sharp and unrelenting. Olivia blinked away the tears that threatened to escape. She couldn't cry here, not in front of strangers. She had built an empire on strength, and yet her biggest weakness sat right in front of her on that playground swing. And then, it happened. Just as Olivia adjusted her coat and prepared for another lonely, quiet morning, a figure appeared at the edge of the playground. A tall stranger walked in, holding the hand of a little boy. His presence was calm, but carried a warmth that seemed to ripple across the park. Olivia didn't know it yet, but that single moment was about to change everything. A new chapter was about to begin, not only for Emma, but for Olivia herself. This was the day a stranger walked into their lives and shattered the silence. Across the playground, a tall man with warm brown skin and kind, steady eyes held the hand of a little boy about Emma's age. His name was Marcus Johnson, a man who carried himself with quiet strength. Life had not been easy for him. He was a single dad, raising his son Caleb all on his own after his wife had left years ago. He worked long shifts as a mechanic, And though money was always tight, Marcus made sure Caleb never felt the emptiness of what they didn't have. To Caleb, his father was his hero, the one constant who never let him down. As they stepped onto the playground, Marcus immediately noticed the little girl sitting all alone on the swing, her tiny legs barely moving, her gaze fixed on the ground as though the rest of the world didn't exist. Caleb, full of energy, immediately tugged on his father's hand, his big brown eyes wide with concern. "Daddy, why's that girl all by herself?" Marcus followed his son's gaze and took in the sight of Emma. So small, so quiet, as if she carried a weight far too heavy for a child her age. His heart squeezed. He knew loneliness. He had felt it many times in his own life, and he didn't want to see another child swallowed by it. Smiling gently, he bent down to his son's level. "Maybe she just needs a friend," he said softly. "Why don't you go say hi?" Caleb's face lit up. "Okay," he chirped, and without hesitation, he ran toward Emma, holding out his favorite toy car as an offering. "Hey, want to play with me?" he asked eagerly. Emma glanced at the car, but said nothing. Her little hands stayed tucked in her lap, and she looked away, her shoulders curling inward as though she wanted to disappear. Caleb frowned for a moment, but didn't give up. Instead, with the pure persistence of a child's heart, he placed the toy car gently in her lap, as if telling her, "It's okay, you don't have to say anything, I'll wait." From the bench nearby, Olivia stiffened, her entire body tense. She had seen this moment so many times before, children running up to Emma, curious and friendly at first, only to walk away moments later when they realized she wouldn't speak. The disappointment in their little faces always left Olivia feeling like a failure, a knife twisting in her chest. She braced herself for it again, but this time was different. Marcus didn't rush over to pull Caleb away, didn't whisper an apology, didn't shoot Olivia that familiar look of pity she despised so much. Instead, he walked over at a steady pace, his expression calm and reassuring, as though he understood something unspoken. He crouched down to his son's height, his presence warm, his voice steady. "Hi there," he said kindly to Olivia, giving her a smile that wasn't forced but genuine. "I'm Marcus. That's my little guy, Caleb." Olivia nodded politely, her CEO poise kicking in like armor. But inside, her defenses rose immediately. She had built walls around herself, around Emma, walls made of cold stares and quick explanations meant to keep people from asking questions she didn't want to answer. Her words came out sharper than she intended, almost like a warning. "She doesn't talk." Marcus didn't flinch. He didn't look away, didn't show even a flicker of surprise or discomfort. Instead, he turned his gaze toward Emma, lowering himself slightly so he was closer to her level. His voice softened, carrying no trace of pity, only patience. "That's okay," he said warmly. "Sometimes talking takes time, but I bet she has a lot to say in her own way." Olivia blinked, caught off guard. Nobody had ever said it like that before. Usually, people either pretended not to notice Emma's silence or asked intrusive questions with furrowed brows. But Marcus's words were different. They weren't filled with judgment or sympathy, only quiet faith. For the first time in a long time, Olivia felt something shift inside her, as though someone had reached past the wall she had built and reminded her that Emma's silence wasn't the end of her story. It was just the beginning. For the next half hour, Caleb kept trying with the determination only a child could have. He invited Emma to slide down with him, showed her how to spin on the merry-go-round until they both got dizzy, and even offered her his most treasured possession, his favorite little red toy car. Emma remained silent, her lips pressed together, but something was different this time. She didn't turn away, didn't retreat into her quiet shell like she usually did. Instead, she stayed. She sat right there next to him, her eyes following his every move, as if silently considering his invitation to join his world. Marcus, watching his son's relentless kindness, smiled quietly and shifted his attention to Olivia. He kept the conversation light, never once making her feel uncomfortable. Unlike others, he didn't tilt his head in pity or probe into Emma's condition with invasive questions. Instead, he spoke about his own life as a single father, how he once burned spaghetti so badly Caleb called it black noodles, how bedtime often turned into a wrestling match with pajamas, and how Caleb's laughter could brighten even his hardest days. Olivia, used to guarded small talk filled with shallow compliments about her success, found herself surprised. Marcus's words felt real, unpolished, and refreshingly human. For the first time in years, she felt like she was having a conversation not as Olivia Carter, CEO, but simply as a mother. Then it happened, something so small, yet so monumental, it nearly stole Olivia's breath. Caleb scrambled up the steps of the playground slide, his voice ringing with joy. "Emma, come on, it's fun," he shouted, waving her over. Emma froze. Her wide eyes flicked to the slide, then to Caleb. For the briefest moment, Olivia swore she saw a spark, an emotion she hadn't seen in her daughter in a long time. Curiosity, interest, a desire to belong. Slowly, as if moving through water, Emma slid off the swing and stood up. Olivia's heart skipped a beat, her pulse hammering in her ears. She had seen Emma ignore countless invitations before, but this was different. This time, her daughter was actually walking toward the slide. Step by step, Emma climbed the small ladder, her hands gripping the rails tightly, her little legs wobbling with both fear and determination. Caleb cheered for her the whole way, clapping his hands and grinning. "You can do it, Emma. Come on." Olivia could barely breathe. Her chest tightened, tears already pricking her eyes. Emma never, ever joined other kids. Not at school, not at parties, not anywhere. But here she was climbing, reaching, trying. Finally, Emma reached the top of the slide where Caleb was waiting, his hands stretched out in encouragement. She paused, her small frame trembling slightly as she looked at him. Then, in that fragile, magical moment, something extraordinary happened. Her lips parted, and the softest whisper, so quiet Olivia almost thought she imagined it. Emma spoke. "Play." The sound was faint, but it was real. Olivia gasped aloud, her hands flying to her mouth as tears spilled over her cheeks. Her knees went weak. She had waited 6 long years for this. 6 years of silence, of failed therapies, of heartbreak and hopelessness. And now, in the most unexpected moment, her daughter had spoken. Not to a doctor, not to a therapist, not even to her, but to a little boy she had just met on a playground. It was one word, a tiny word. But to Olivia, it was everything. It was the sound of hope. It was the crack in the wall of silence that had trapped her daughter for so long. Olivia rushed toward the slide, so quickly her heels sank into the soft ground beneath her. Her knees trembled, her hands shook uncontrollably as she reached out for her daughter. Her voice cracked, heavy with disbelief and hope colliding all at once. "Emma, baby, did you just talk?" Emma, perched at the top of the slide with Caleb by her side, turned her head slightly. Her big, innocent eyes carried both shyness and courage. She pressed her lips together, then parted them again, and in a tiny voice, soft but clear enough to pierce through the silence that had defined her life, she repeated the word. "Play." The single syllable echoed in Olivia's ears like music, like a song she had been waiting her whole life to hear. Her chest tightened, and before she could stop herself, she broke down. Tears streamed down her cheeks uncontrollably. She didn't care who was watching, didn't care if the polished image of a powerful CEO crumbled before strangers. Right now, she wasn't a businesswoman, she wasn't a public figure. She was just a mother who had finally heard her daughter's voice. For years, she had begged specialists for answers, spent endless nights researching new treatments, spent fortunes on therapies, private schools, and experts who promised miracles. But in the end, it wasn't a doctor or a specialist or even all the money she had poured into the problem that unlocked Emma's voice. No, what opened the door was something far simpler, far purer. It was kindness. It was trust. It was the innocence of a child offering friendship, and the steady patience of a father who believed Emma had something to say, even if she wasn't ready yet. As Olivia sobbed, Marcus stepped forward quietly. He didn't overwhelm her with words, didn't try to fill the silence with advice. Instead, he placed a gentle, steady hand on her shoulder. His touch wasn't forceful, It was grounding, like an anchor reminding her she wasn't alone. His deep, calm voice carried a warmth that steadied her shaking heart. Sometimes, the right people come along at the right time, he said softly. Olivia couldn't find her voice. The lump in her throat was too heavy, the flood of emotions too strong. All she could do was drop to her knees and wrap her arms around Emma, pulling her daughter close against her chest. She pressed her cheek to Emma's hair, whispering through her tears, "I'm so proud of you. So proud." Emma didn't say anything more, but she leaned into her mother's embrace with a quiet comfort Olivia hadn't felt in years. Around them, the playground seemed to pause. The laughter and noise of children playing softened as other parents realized what had just happened. A mother who had carried years of silent heartbreak had just heard her daughter speak for the very first time. Some parents wiped at their own tears. Others smiled knowingly, moved by the miracle unfolding before their eyes. It wasn't just Olivia's moment. It was something everyone present would remember. From that day forward, life began to change in ways Olivia had never imagined. Every weekend, without fail, she brought Emma back to the little neighborhood playground. And every time, as though it were fate, Marcus and Caleb were there waiting. It became more than a routine. It became a rhythm of healing, a safe place where Emma was no longer just the silent girl, but simply a child learning how to laugh, speak, and belong. At first, Emma's words came slowly, almost like fragile petals opening after a long winter. A soft yes, a hesitant bawl, a whispered slide. Each new word was a victory, a treasure Olivia cherished more than anything her wealth had ever bought her. With Caleb by her side, encouraging, patient, never pressuring, Emma began to grow more confident. His laughter made her laugh. His games made her curious. And little by little, her silence melted away, replaced by a voice that had been waiting for the right moment and the right people to be heard. For Olivia, it was a transformation too. She had built her empire believing that success meant control, that problems could be solved with strategy, money, or sheer determination. But Emma taught her a different truth. Healing couldn't be forced. It couldn't be bought. It blossomed in the presence of love, patience, and genuine connection. That realization humbled her more than any boardroom defeat ever could. As weeks turned into months, the bond between the two families deepened. Caleb became Emma's best friend, her first real companion, and her safe space. Marcus, once just a stranger in a playground, became a steady presence in Olivia's life, someone who offered not judgment, but understanding. Olivia found herself looking forward to their conversations, the way he could make her laugh with his stories or calm her fears with just a few thoughtful words. Slowly, he became a support she never realized she desperately needed. One golden evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Olivia sat beside Marcus on a park bench. Their children ran through the grass, chasing bubbles and shouting joyfully. Olivia's eyes welled with tears, but this time they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of gratitude. She turned to Marcus, her voice trembling with emotion. "You didn't just help my daughter speak. You gave us hope again." Marcus looked at her, his smile gentle but full of meaning. "And you reminded me," he replied, "that even when life feels heavy, miracles happen in the smallest moments." For the first time in years, Olivia felt her heart open, not just as a mother relieved of her burden, but as a woman who had found something precious, friendship, connection, and perhaps even the beginnings of love. As the children's laughter echoed across the park, Olivia realized a new chapter had begun, not only for Emma, who had discovered her voice, but for all of them, because one simple word, play, had changed everything. If you found this story inspiring, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another powerful video. Thanks for watching.